What's up YouTube? Today I have a tiny Tina Wonderlands build video with you guys, and for this one we have a brand new addition to the build doc. Yeah, Kwon Cobra. This Sporewarden Stabbomancer build focuses on melee with some companion flavor on top. With this build we are mainly abusing Snake Stick with the ability to summon Hydra companions that also deal melee damage in combination with Alchemical Agent to deal ton of damage against enemy, and because of Stabbomancer insane melee too, as well as Sporewarden ability to buff your companion to an insane amount, we are able to achieve that. If you don't know what the build doc is, it is basically a documentation of all the best build at endgame that is made by the pros who spend hours in Wonderland testing and trying things out, and they have a lot of knowledge, so you can be sure that the build will be viable. And there are a lot of options for almost every class combination, so you won't feel missed out when you are playing any character. If you are clueless about what build to go with in endgame, I highly recommend you checking the build document out. The link will be down in my description. Before the video starts, don't remember to like, share, sub to the channel if you haven't done that already. Comment down below on what you think about the video. Join the Discord server if you want to get the sci-fi or just want to have a chat with me. With that being said though, let's get in. The gear breakdown. As a gun, we are mainly use them for melee utility, so stuff like live wire. They will provide us with a shock chain whenever we melee an enemy, and that chain would double tip our damage, so just a lot of damage here, and probably the one gun you would want to hold while playing this build. Queen Cry is for proccing Tree of the Hands and Executioner Blade with its second fire mode, and especially when we are using from the shadow too, very useful that way. Tuterator is the best weapon to apply melee damage bow in my opinion. Is able to apply up to like 18 bow per mark, so this will also give us a lot of damage. Other than that, we are using a Stabbomancer. Stabbomancer is so that we are better matchup against the fight that aren't very melee friendly, and it is also a great fight for your life or say your soul weapon, and synergize really well with Alchemical Agent. Twisted Delusion. This is a way for us to apply soak if you aren't using the cable tie or the tiebreaker. For the enchant on this guys, for the bow applier, it doesn't really matter. But for the main weapon that you are holding when you are meleeing, reloading during from the shadow, restore its duration, enchant, and just general stuff like spellcast gain damage, dealt, gain elemental damage, gain iron melee damage is also great. For the melee weapon, we are only using the Snake Stick for this build because this is a Snake Stick focused build. This melee weapon is very special in a way that it spawns Hydra companions that deal melee damage. It have pretty decent base damage, and trying to look for one with the Asian heal mod, because this will provide you with a lot of action skill cooldown, which means you can get back to from the shadow quicker. Very important part of the build is that you get into from the shadow, from my experience at least. The element, if you are mainly using soak, so you put probably one either a frost one or a shock one. But if you are not using soak, any element that matching up well with the enemies that you are fighting is generally preferable, so I recommend you like have at least like 5 elements for all elements if you can. For the enchant, look for gain 30% melee damage against boss and badasses, or consecutive melee attack increase melee damage. Either of those are great. As a heal mod, you can also use include caustic, which will give you a lot of dot damage, and this synergize insanely well with Alchemical Agent and Contagion. This heal mod is generally the way to go for bossing. Vampire would give you 10 of your max health and max squad whenever you do a melee attack, so use this when you want more survivability. If you are lacking survivability, generally use this in a mobbing situation, even in some bossing situation. To the shield, we are mainly using the Bad Egg. This would provide a quick bonus dark magic damage to our melee damage attack while the sword is depleted, so a nice amount of damage that got some healing. Try to get while action skill active, increase any damage by 35%, elemental damage, melee damage, the whole deal, you know the deal. Other than that, you can also use a body rune, especially in mobbing situation. It says that on kill, restore 50% of your max health and deal 20% bonus fire damage. This 20% is much larger than it is stated. This provides you great survivability as well as some damage. Master Rune, very straightforward. It provides you with the 25% companion damage, which might be useful for the snake stick companions. For this spell, now I'm only showcasing 2 spells here, but you can generally use any spell that has low cooldown and have a lot of charge, and you can get a spell card enchant on it, so that you can get consistent enchant proc. That can be great too, like stuff like the arcane bolts, for example. But generally, the best spell in my personal experience has been the Smithy Ire. This is a spell that deals melee damage. It can also proc Alchemical Agent, which means a lot of damage. And this is great for when we are going into save your soul, or the boss is just really far away and not very melee friendly. We are also using a tiebreaker to apply soak, very strong debuff to enemies, basically make them take 50% more damage from lightning and frost, and that can be double dip if the double dip also deal lightning and frost. For the armor, you probably want one quick as much point to triple the hand as possible, the skill that gives you companion damage when you crit. So probably you want a graveborn power, Sporewarden power, or blind power, Sporewarden power. And the one that I'm using here is a Tyrant Tooth that buff melee damage by 35%, but your class companion is removed. And this 35% is quite huge because it's straight up buffing your card melee damage, and it is multiplicative to most of your other melee buff. You do lose a Mushroom Companion, which can be a bummer, but it is kind of worth it in this build. And Mushroom Companion doesn't do really that much in terms of damage in that game anyways. So for the passive, try to look for melee damage, melee crit chance, and all damage dealt. As the armor, I'm also using a Cave of Tide to apply soak. Again, very insane debuff. Try to use shock or cryo weapon when you are doing this. I'm also using a Mice Mail just to straight up buff our stated effect damage, so allow us to further our double dipping formulas and do boss better that way. For the amulet, I'm using a sacrificial skip to improve my survivability, because this skip will instantly heal you to full. Try to look for the elements that are matching your weapon, and Stabbomancer power is generally preferable. For the passive, get as much or damage dealt or stated effect damage as possible. Other than that, I'm also using a Tiroge. I'm sorry for the name, it doesn't really show up here because I think there is some bug with the save editor. But this is a Tiroge that whenever you cast a spell, reduce your remaining action skill cooldown by 20%. All this is to get from the shadow back sooner, very important. This is a frenzied grasp that would provide you with a lot of companion damage, which means the buffing snake stick companion can be very useful too, but generally you would want to farm for the passive rather than for the abilities. Any amulet that isn't the Blood Luck that have great passive, great power and matching element is great for your build, just take it. For the rings, I'm using a shell casing ring because it provides the most bonus for a non-gun build, for any gun build actually. Try to get melee damage one, duh. For the passive, get melee critical hit chance, action skill cooldown rate, action skill cooldown duration, melee crit damage. And when you are using a shell casing ring, be sure to shoot your gun until the reload symbol appears so that this ring can be active. Again, generally just farm for the passive, not really the ability, but having a large abilities that can be easily proc is nice too, if you can do that. Moving on to the skill tree. We start with the Sporewarden skill tree where we put 5 points into Bounty of the Hunt for some archer skill cooldown rate, Kindred Heart for some companion damage and some companion health. Bullseye 2 points here is kinda useless, but these 2 points are supposed to be Spore Cloud and Medicinal Mushroom. But because we are using the Tyrant Tooth and the Mushroom Companion, it kinda just not here. So we put 2 points into Bullseye. If you aren't using the Tyrant Tooth, make sure to put 2 points from Bullseye into Spore Cloud and Medicinal Mushroom. 3 points into Green Runner for some fire rate and movement speed. Free of the Hunt, very important skill, gives you a lot of companion damage. Make sure that you have a gun that can proc crit a lot, like the Queen's Cry for example. Try to aim, and you should get like a lot of companion damage that way. Moving on to the Stabbomancer skill tree. We are getting 3 in haste for melee attack speed, movement speed, potent poison for started effect damage and started effect duration, or which are very beneficial to Contagion and Alchemical Agent. The 2 very important skills that makes this build actually do damage. A Swift Death is for some global damage, some all damage. Exploit as a weakness. A buff that is multiplicative to all of our buff in this build, so very insane, and we are able to apply a lot of stated effect when we are using Contagion and Alchemical Agent. Elusive is so that we can shoot and sprint at the same time, and the evade chance can be nice too. Contagion in combination with Alchemical Agent is a deadly combo. Like Alchemical Agent say that the melee critical hit apply a random stated effect, and this stated effect is a 10% of melee damage dealt. And this skill is a double dip, which means it is reapplying draw damage formulas. So like this stated effect damage is way larger when you have enough bonuses. And in order to get even more damage, we have another double dip in Contagion. It can double dip from Alchemical Agent, making and reapply our damage formula one more time. So that means a lot of damage. So in total we are doing a triple dip. 4 points to 1000 cut for some all damage, and Executioner Blade is just a really strong skill, especially in Fight from the Shadow when you are using a gun that crit a lot. It also proc Alchemical Agent and it crit again not very melee friendly bosses. For the hero start, I don't recommend using the background that I'm using right now. You should be getting the Alchemist background one that buff a lot of wisdom. But generally you would want to max out strength and wisdom, and the rest of the point can go into constitution or attunement. For the playstyle, generally just swing stuff around and things will die. Note that this next stick can only spawn 3 Hydra as max, and they last for 6 seconds. So you have to time your swing well so that the Hydra can do damage. Because if you swing too frequently, the oldest Hydra will get respawn before it can do any damage, and you lose out on DPS that way. Also, for most mobbing situation, when you are going one-on-one with a smaller mob, 1 Hydra is enough, so you might just have to swing once. But against beefier enemy like some bosses, you want all 3 on top of them to do the max amount of damage. So that is it. Hope you find this video useful. If you did, remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Comment down below on what you think. Join the Discord server, and see you guys next time.